Now, that which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one might say, see this? It is new. Already it has existed for ages, which were before us. I can sense some of you already getting ready to get comfortable, to doze off, just by hearing the title of this message. But before you tune me out and before you try to run me out, allow me to alert you to the fact that whether you know it or not, or even if you like it or not, you are a theologian. And you do theology every day. Everyone in here, in fact, everyone on the planet is a theologian. Charles Ryrie, in his book, Basic Theology, he opens up by saying something to the effect that in reality, everyone is a theologian, one sort or another. He says there is nothing wrong with being an amateur theologian or a professional theologian, but there is everything wrong with being an ignorant or sloppy theologian. Whether you are a believer or an unbeliever, an atheist or an agnostic, you are some kind of a theologian. You're a theologian. But understand that what theology is. Theology at its core is merely how a person views aspects of creation in light of the Creator. That's all theology is. It's how a person views different aspects, various aspects of creation in light of the Creator. Even when you discount and deny or defy the Creator as you view His creation, you're still forming a theology. And it's our theology that ultimately drives our actions and our reaction towards everything and anything that is created. How we operate in this life, how we interact with one another, how we utilize the things in our society and our world, we do it through the lens of theology, whether you recognize it or not. And so, since most of us did not go to seminary, and since most of us perhaps never sat down to study or systematically consider our view of life and creation with respect of the Creator, and I thought it would be nice to hijack you today and kidnap you for a little while and have some theological reflection while I have your attention just for a few minutes. I want to walk you through this whole process because I want you to begin to view life in light of the Creator. View the things in life, view the things that you take for granted every day in light of God, the Creator. And so I figured it would be fun to start with an aspect of creation that we all can relate to. And so let's take this time and develop for ourselves a theology of technology. And touch a neighbor and say, this ought to be interesting. Now, as I mentioned, we're not going to go through all of it today, but we'll get as far as we can and finish up next week. Well, the best way, perhaps, to navigate through a theological introspection is by asking questions and answering them. I think that's a good way to approach it, is to ask some questions, seek out and determine what the answers are based upon your view in light of the Creator. So perhaps a good starter question to consider is, what exactly do we mean by technology? What do we mean by technology? Well, as a working definition for us, let's consider technology to be merely the ways and the means of doing things faster and or differently. You'll notice that up here I have different mediums. I have a paper Bible, but I also have an electronic iPad. And so if you think about it, for example, the development of a written language was at one time groundbreaking technological advancement. Before there was any written language, yes, there was verbal language, but written language was actually a technological breakthrough. Well, after that, pencils and paper came along as technological breakthrough. Later on, we had typewriters. Anybody remember typewriters? Typewriters came along, and then computers came along, and emails. Then it was followed by smartphones and text. Next up, well, who knows what's next? But all of these things were considered to be technology in that they allowed for communication specifically to be done faster and differently. And the same can be said for other areas, such as food preparation. You used to have to cook your food over an open fire, but then there came along and you had the wood-burning stoves, and then you had the gas stoves and electric stoves, and then came along the microwave. Technology. Technology in medicine. Transportation. Technology. Technology is simply doing what you've done faster and or differently. But our text reminds us that although technology makes things faster and many times more enhanced, technology can never make anything that's new. Look at the text again with me. It says, that which has been is that which will be. And that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. I could hear you thinking. You're thinking that before paper was invented, there was no paper, so paper was new. Email and texting, it didn't exist until it was developed, and therefore it became something new. So how then can this scripture text say that there is nothing new under the sun? How can it say that whatever this is, it has already been in existence for ages before us? How in the world can this be true if I'm talking about new things? Well, now you're thinking like a thinking theologian. Now you're asking some questions that need to be answered. But remember, I told you that technology only allows something that has already been done, has already been done to be enhanced or done faster. Think about it. Pencils, paper, typewriters, emails, texts, and all other technologies of communication only makes it easier and faster to share thoughts and ideas. And thoughts and ideas have always existed, and therefore thoughts and ideas are nothing new. Are you still walking with me? No technology has ever been or ever will be created that will allow me to share my thought with you that I haven't already thought. I can never communicate to you an idea that is in my head if it's never conceived in my head. I don't care what kind of technologies exist. You can give me all the pencils in the world. I'll never write anything I didn't think about. Text message, I can't text you if I didn't think of what I'm going to text. There's artificial intelligence. Well, what about artificial intelligence? You didn't think that up, but you thought up that which is thinking that up. So you cannot go beyond that. There are many technologies that have come about that allows me to share my thought once I've thought it faster and even to more people, but the ability to think or even share thoughts and ideas is nothing new that's under the sun. So when it comes to technology, can we agree that it is merely ways and means to do things faster and or in an enhanced way, but never does it create anything new under the sun? I know you're going to test this when you get home. You're going to walk around your house and look at all these technological things you have. There's nothing new under the sun. I bought a new car. Great for you. It ain't nothing new. It can only get you from point A to point B, and you can do that if you walk. It may take longer, but it's nothing new. So that's what technology is. But that brings us to another question with regards to viewing creation in light of the Creator. Because that's really what theology is about. Yes, that's great to know what technology is. It's great to have all these technological advances and all of these technical instruments that helps me to do things faster and enhances the way I do things. But I need to look at these things in light of the Creator. And so it brings about the question, what is God's view of technology? What does God think about technology? How does he feel about technology? For instance, in the area of communication, since God created the mind, and it's the mind which produces thoughts, which technology has made it easier and faster to share, what does God think about technology? Well, I think that's a good theological question. Can I start by saying this? First of all, let me be clear, and let's be clear the fact that, first of all, God does not need technology. And amen would fit well right in that space. God does not need technology. Only God can create new things. That is something from nothing. Technology cannot create anything new. Remember, there's nothing new under the sun. It can only take that which has already existed and make it faster or more convenient or enhance it in some kind of way. But technology cannot create something from nothing. God alone creates and produces anything that is new under the sun. Technology can only take what God has already created, including the mind, which developed ideas for technology and developed them easier and faster ways to do what God has already done. So, if God wanted a new way for the body to function, he does not need technological advancements in medicine to do it. All God has to do is create a whole new body, or a new dynamic of physics. And that's something that technology will never be able to do. God does not need technology. God does not need us to think up something better than what he's done. Because not only does God not need technology, furthermore, whatever God makes as new, it'll continue to function as he created it without the need of any technological changes to be made. God, you don't have to change God's stuff when it works, when he creates it, at the point of creation. Think about it. There is nothing that God created that has ever required a new and improved version to be invented through technology to replace what God has done. Don't miss that. There is nothing that God created that has ever required a new and improved version of it to be invented through technology to replace what God has done. Even though sin has caused problems and sin has caused malfunctions in God's creations, there is no way to replace the fundamental functions of God's creative design. I see you looking at me with that attitude again. Listen, here's what I mean. Think about it. Think about it. Nothing has ever been invented that can replace thoughts. Has there ever been anything that can replace thoughts and thinking? No. Even though technologies exist that can help us in our thinkings. We have books. We have the internet. We have other things that can help us in our thinking, but it cannot replace thoughts. Y'all not feeling me yet? Can I give you another one? There's nothing that will ever be invented that can substitute for breath. Even though there are technologies that have been developed to help us to breathe when our ability to breathe malfunctions. Tell me, what can replace your breath? God created it. He blew into man the breath of life. Man became a living soul. So there is nothing technological that we can ever produce that will replace or substitute for breath. Listen, there's nothing that will ever be made that can be an alternative to time or travel. I know we have our space movies. I know we have Star Trek and Star Wars and the time continuum, but there's nothing that can replace time. Even though there has been a lot of breakthroughs that have existed and assist us in telling the time and determining the time and traveling great distances, but you still cannot replace time and travel. God created the reality that you can only be in one place at one time. There's nothing been invented that can replace time. You have time. Now, there's been a lot of things that can determine the time. And we paid a lot of money for expensive time tellers. Gold-plated, precision movement, quartz watch, Rolex. That's expensive, but all it's going to do is tell me what time it is in God's time continuum that God created, and you can't make anything to replace time. There's one more. There'll never be a way, there'll never be anything created or invented that will allow us to procreate without the participation of a man, a male, and a female. Even though there's been technologies that have been developed that will help us when reproductive organs malfunction. The artificial inseminations, the different medications that can help, and surrogate motherhood. You still need a male, y'all ain't praying with me, and a female in order to procreate. You're not creating, you are procreating. Pro means forward. You are forward creating. In other words, you did not create humanity. All you're doing is pushing it forward from your lifetime beyond your lifetime. God created life. God created babies. God created human beings. And you cannot replace what God made. God doesn't need technology. And what God created new cannot be replaced. Because what God creates and makes, it functions as he wants it to. Even though sin creates problems for it. Well, I think that's enough for part one. We'll finish thinking through our theology of technology next week. Next week, when we're going to look at the believer's view, how we need to view technology and how we should use technology as believers in light of God's view. And so, come on back next week. Now, you hear? And hear the rest of it. But before I turn the lights out, before I shut the electricity off, can I at least finish proving my point that God does not need technology? I promise, this is the kind of stuff that'll make you shout once I give it to you. I was fascinated as I studied this, as I began to develop this theology of technology and understanding how God does not need technology. For when God gets ready for something new, God will just make it all over again. Listen, when God gets ready for a new world, he's not going to technologically advance this world. For John informs us in Revelation 22 that he's going to create an entirely new heaven and a new earth. The old heaven and the old earth will pass away. And watch this. Once God recreates the world, things are going to be different. Remember, I told you man can't change water. Water is water. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. No matter how you flavor it or carbonize it, it does not matter. It's still what it is. It's still all over the place. In fact, the majority of this earth is water. We need water in order to survive. That's why we've got to keep water in our body. That's why we've got to stay hydrated, because even our makeup is predominantly water. But watch this. When God makes a new world, water will be made new. It'll be made new. For it tells us that there will be no more large bodies of water. But in fact, there's only going to be a crystal river of water that comes from the throne of God. You're not going to have oceans and seas. You're not going to have large bodies of water, lakes and ponds. No, all we're going to have is a little river that runs from his throne. That's not technology. That's a creative God. Listen, trees won't be the same even. Trees can only produce one kind of fruit per tree. Tomato plants can only produce tomatoes. Apple trees can only produce apples. Orange trees can only produce oranges. But the Bible says that when God gets a hold of this thing and makes trees differently, they will be either on one side of the river of life, and the tree will be able to bear 12 different kinds of fruit for the healing of the nation. That's not technology. That's a creative God. When God starts creating, he doesn't need technology. He just make the whole thing over again. When God get busy in his laboratory, he's not going to have a new and improved world. He's going to have a different world. In fact, when God redoes this thing, night will become obsolete. And the sun will be shut off forever. The Bible says that God himself will illuminate the world. There'll be no need for a sun. And if there's no need for a sun, there's no need for a moon. Because there'll be no darkness, because God, it'll be day all the time. It'll be light all the time. It'll be shiny all the time. We don't have to worry about the sun going out. It's gone out. But God will shine forever. That's not technology. That's my God just being creative. Can I give you one more? You and I are going to be made new too. You're doing all of this, using all this technology, taking all of this advancement in medicine, multivitamins, trying to stay strong, going through chemotherapy to get rid of the cancer in your body, taking all kinds of injections and all kinds of resources in order to try and live longer and healthier, make your body stronger, make it last longer. All this technology is great in its place, but one day technology won't do what God will do. In the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we shall all be changed. Changed from corruptible to incorruptible, from mortal to immortality, from dusty to glorious. In a moment, God will make us new. But technology can never do any of that. But we have a God who can. And that's where my theology of technology begins.